Okay, so I'm going to send 2 YouTubes today. This is on Lily Daw and the Three Ladies by Welty. And I just want to talk a little bit before I talk about the story, or maybe you're watching this after I talk about the story, whatever. One of the reasons that I picked Eudora Welty and Flannery O'Connor pieces are I really wanted to talk about a genre called Southern Gothic writing, or Southern writing. And so these are 2 Southern writers. Welty is from Mississippi and O'Connor is from Georgia, and they really love to write about the South. And they loved to write about the things that are kind of funny about the South, even though they have great affection for it. And they never left the South. They just liked to find idiosyncrasies, funny little traits, or caricatures of people groups in the South. And this would have been in the first part of this century. So like Depression era, Jim Crow era, and they were both white women, and so they were living in a really racist, like openly violent time. But they loved. They were able to kind of peel back the curtain and see like beneath this veneer of like Southern politeness and yes ma'am and no man, and everybody's, we read To Kill a Mockingbird, everybody just looked like flowers, they said. The women would walk around looking like flowers. Dressed well, even like when I moved here, or moved to Louisville, someone said, it's such a pain to go to Walmart because I always have to get dressed up. And I'm like, you do? I mean, I'm from the South and everything, but certain cultures have certain things about them that are just understood until you are new, or until you kind of take a look at it. And so Southern Gothic writers liked to take a look at what looked really, really nice and polite and cleaned up, and then kind of lift the lid and say, okay, we did have this storefront of politeness, but we were also lynching people. And convict leasing, like we talked about, went on through the 1940s, and the civil rights movement didn't even happen until the 1950s. And we talked about how a black person could be arrested just for not having a job that day under vagrancy laws. And so Southern Gothic writing is a very particular type of writing. We didn't get to do a whole thing about it, but that's okay. We didn't get to do a lot, but like William Faulkner, Harper Lee of To Kill a Mockingbird, Flannery O'Connor, others that are not coming to my mind, but these are all writers that lived and wrote about the South. One of the things about Lily Daw, which is kind of a funny piece, kind of darkly funny, is the idea of the comedy of manners. And a lot has been written about the way that Eudora Welty could describe in her stories and dialogue how people used Southern colloquialisms and phrases in very odd situations. But there are ways like bless your heart. That's a Southern colloquialism, a Southern phrase that if I use with, I have relatives in the North. If I use with them, they're like, I don't know how to take that, But here, it's just a term of endearment, a term of sympathy, right? But if you start listening to what is being said around you, you will hear Southern manners and Southern phrases being used, and Welty thought it was funny. You don't have to think it's funny. I don't even know if she's making fun of it. I mean, she had a great affection for the South, but I wanted to talk about, in literature, the comedy of errors. The comedy of manners, especially in Lily Daw and the Three Ladies. And I'm gonna just read a little bit to you, but this is The definition of a comedy of manners, particularly Southern manners, would be writing from the perspective of the manners of the South that are unintentionally humorous. These are examples from the short story Lily Daw. So the ladies go to her house to tell her that she's been accepted into they're so excited that she's been accepted into the Ellisville Institute for the Mentally Disabled. And they descend on her in her home, just kind of armed with this repertoire of proper, conventional, persuasive techniques, right? Because they got to convince her to go. But Lily is a very typical character in Southern Gothic writing, where she's kind of slightly off center. You know, she's got a defect. But she's also, like, those characters are also often the truest characters. If you think of To Kill a Mockingbird, Boo Radley, you know, he was kind of a grotesque character, but he was also representative of purity and honesty and courage and bravery. And Southern Gothic writing is full of those characters. So we have this Lily Daw character, and she defies their attempts at persuasiveness. So here's an example of dialogue. They get there and she's packing, and they don't know she's packing. "Go on and tell us what you're doing, Lily," said Amy Sloane. "Packing, silly," said Lily. "Where are you going?" "Going to get married, and I bet you wish you was me now," said Lily. "Talk to me, dear," said Mrs. Carson. "Tell old Miss Carson why you want to get married." So there's this kind of, she's pulling out her grandmother technique here, like, anyway. And Lily says no, after a moment's hesitation. "Well, we've thought of something that will be so much nicer," said Mrs. Carson. "Why don't you go to Ellisville?" "Won't that be lovely?" said Mrs. Watts. "Goodness, yes, it's a lovely place," said Amy Slocum uncertainly. "You've got bumps on your face," said Lily. So you have this, so their persuasiveness, the ways that they try to endear themselves to her don't work. The ladies then try false envy. "I wish I could go to Ellisville," and they glorify institutional routine. "Oh, yes, indeed. They will let you make all kinds of baskets." that would be the thing that would make you want to go somewhere making baskets. Then so after false envy, "I wish I was going," they try bribery. "If you go, they will give her hem-stitched pillowcases and caramel cake." These are all Southern things, right? Caramel cake, that's a Southern delicacy. A Bible, super big in the Bible Belt. A bra, and this last suggestion brings a mild protest from Mrs. Carson. But then somebody says, well, she needs it. What would they think if she ran out all over Ellisville looking like a Fiji? Like, even the mentally handicapped at an institution need to have proper decor and covering. And then they finally, in a great Southern technique, resort to God himself. "We've all asked God, Lily, and God seemed to tell us, Mr. Carson too," the pastor, "that the place you ought to be so as to be happy is Ellisville." And those are all supposed to be comedic, persuasive techniques. And the last kind of trump card is playing the well, God told me. Now, how are you supposed to argue against God telling you something? But even their responses to Lily's disclosure that she's met someone last night, like she met a man last night, they don't believe she's going to get married until she says she met somebody at the tent thing, and she met a xylophone player. And when they realize that she spent time with them, they don't know what happened. And we didn't get to discuss this in class. So this even their response to this disclosure that she may have had some sort of relationship with him last night, they reach a point of hysteria, but even this is within Bible Belt manners. Did he do anything to you? In the long run, it was still only Mrs. Watts who could take charge. "Oh, yes'm," said Lily. She patted the cakes of soap fastidiously with the tips of her small fingers and tucked them in with a washcloth. "What?" demanded Amy Slocum, rising up and tottering before her scream. "What?" she called out in the hall. So Amy Slocum is the one unmarried woman, and this idea that she may have actually had a sexual relationship with this man, like, she's falling out. "Don't ask her what," said Mrs. Carson, coming up behind. "Tell me, Lily, just yes or no. Are you the same as you were?" "He had a red coat," said Lily graciously. "He took little sticks and went ping pong, ding dong." "Oh, I think I'm going to faint," said Amy Slocum. But they said, "No, you're not." So I just want you to have that in your head. Southern Gothic literature is a little bit of a dark look at what is underneath Southern politeness and Southern manners. And this is at least a Southern piece. I don't know if Welty would call it Southern Gothic, but and then I want you to have the term comedy of errors, comedy of manners in your repertoire, and it simply means writing from the perspective of the manners in the South that are unintentionally humorous. And Lily Daw is a great example of that.